If this week couldn't get any worse between the whole debacle with Twitch losing some of its biggest streamers to Kick, or Reddit seemingly dying, and everything else going on in the world, it somehow just managed to do that. For those who don't know what I'm talking about, news broke on Thursday this week that despite the hope of many in early April, it does not appear that E3 will be returning anytime soon. Now, what exactly do I mean? Well, a little recap for everyone since it has been a while. Earlier this year in March, the ESA, which, for a quick reminder, is basically the organization that actually runs E3, came out and announced that E3 would not be held this year. This really didn't come as a big surprise for many, as the last couple of years hadn't been best for the show. Between the pandemic and the waning interest of the show, E3 over the last couple of years went from being canceled, digital only, to digital and in person, to this year, again, being canceled. All was not in vain, though, as we would still have individual summer showcases from companies such as Nintendo, Xbox, and PlayStation, as well as the Summer Game Fest, just to name a few. All of these events would kind of serve the main purpose of what we would normally get in an E3 showcase, and that was basically to show off cool new games, accessories, anything that game companies really wanted to talk about. And depending on your thoughts on different companies, if you're a fanboy or if you're pretty much just a regular gamer, for the most part, all the shows were pretty good this year. Personally, PlayStation was a little iffy for me, but it was still a good show nonetheless. Now, that being said, though, most gamers kind of understood that this was only really meant to be something for 2023. The ESA had come out in their original statement back in March claiming that E3 would return in future years. They really just needed some extra time to think about how they wanted to progress forward with the show. Nothing really to be concerned about. Well, that doesn't seem to be the case anymore. As mentioned earlier, the Los Angeles Tourism Commission reported on Thursday that E3 was likely not going to be held in LA for at least the next 2 years. The report came from an annual report that the commission holds in regards to predictions on hotel bookings for every fiscal year. Basically, them trying to predict, the where and when events could be held as to make sure that everyone could book in a hotel room. This all came on a slide at the very bottom of a note that said, quote, includes E3 cancellation for 2024 and 2025. Now, to be clear, this technically doesn't mean that the show is canceled. The LA Tourism Commission doesn't run E3. They're just trying to predict how their area will be for, again, hotel rooms. The ESA is what determines whether E3 is canceled or held. What this comment does mean is that LA doesn't really believe that E3 in its current state, if you can even really call it that, will be held in LA for the next 2 years. It's just purely a guess based off of how the show's performed and how they think it's going to perform moving forward. Now, this does leave open an interesting conversation, though, as this could be a little bit of foreshadowing that E3 might actually end up getting canceled. Now, personally, I really don't want this to happen. I want E3 to survive. I grew up several years when I was a kid actually watching E3 live, and it's how I got introduced to the 3DS, the DS, all of these amazing consoles and different games throughout my childhood. But it could mean that there might actually come a time when E3 is done. Now, personally, I don't believe this, but what I do think this might be is that I don't think E3 is going to be in LA moving forward. Now, why do I say this? Well, one of the biggest issues that ESA and Red Pop, for anyone who doesn't know, Red Pop is partnering with the ESA basically to help them hold the conference and, run it and everything. They've done a lot of different conventions throughout the country, really, most famously from New York. But one of the biggest issues that they're having has got to be the cost of holding this show every year. I mean, we've got less people actually being interested in the show because all of these other companies are just doing their own thing when they want. But on top of it, you're in a very expensive area. Yeah, Los Angeles is not the most expensive place for somebody to hold something like this, but it's still expensive. So could this be a little bit of foreshadowing that E3 could be coming back, but somewhere else in the country? Personally, I would love to see this because I can't really travel to California myself. If it's in Washington State, Oregon, Illinois, Indiana, New York, Florida, holding this convention in other places throughout the United States, it might allow them to not only save money, but also gain interest from people that, can't travel all the way across the country. It could be really cool actually to see it in other places. And it would also allow them to downscale and possibly save money on a convention center. But regardless of all of that, I am interested in hearing everyone's thoughts on the matter. Do you guys think that this is an early sign of the official death of E3? Or is this a slow adaptation to a new format for the show? As always, if you did enjoy my video today, make sure you hit that like button and subscribe button if you want to be notified about my next upload. I look forward to seeing everyone on our next digital adventure.